What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode 4 of The Rubber Match. As always, I'm your host, Evan Kamenko. This is your official baseball podcast and softball podcast of the Pig Trail Nation. Lot to talk about. We'll talk about baseball. They're 4-1. They've got their home opener this weekend against Xavier. Softball, 8-1. Courtney Deifel's got that team humming right now. They host the Razorback Invitational. A lot of great baseball and softball going on this weekend right here at Baum Walker Stadium and Bogle Park. Bud Walton Arena. I don't know what I'm talking about, guys. It's Wednesday. Bear with me on this, but I'm not going to talk for too long. We'll do our housekeeping stuff. We've got a great conversation coming your way with the one, the only, the voice of Baum Walker Stadium. That is John Williams. He'll join the show in just a bit, but let's get through our housekeeping stuff. We'll make this very quick after Arkansas's 4-1 weekend down in Texas. Hawaiian homers. Number 1 and counting for Kahio Aloy. Really excited to see Kahio get on the podium right now. We don't have a 0 like I initially thought we did. You can thank Flow Sports in that Tarleton State game for not being on TV or just being a commercial. I don't know. You get my point. Hawaiian homers, number 1 so far. As for the Gackle K count, that is up to 9. He had a terrific showing in the opener against Oklahoma State. 9 strikeouts, 4.1 innings pitched, 4 hits. 2 runs, 1 earned. Really solid to see a great start from Gabe as Arkansas goes ahead and wins it. For our full screen view for this weekend, I like everything the way it was last week. I don't think we're going to see too much of a change. I think Damian Ruiz is going to be in that leadoff spot. Other than that, I don't believe on Friday we'll see any differences in this Arkansas lineup when it comes, at least, to Xavier and the home opener. The lineup might change a little bit, but as for the field, I think we're going to stay the same. All right, enough of me talking. Coming up after the break, John Williams is going to join the show, and then on the other side of that interview, we'll talk a little bit about Arkansas softball. Be right back. The Rubber Match returns after these messages. Back here, joined by one of our favorite guests from last season. If you've ever been to Baum Walker Stadium, Bud Walton Arena, you've heard his voice before. Razorback Stadium. Am I missing any stadiums, John? That's John Williams joining the show. Did I miss any stadiums yet?
When I was doing gymnastics, just Barnhill. But although now they're Bud Walton permanently, which is fantastic for Coach Weber and the gym backs who are killing it this year, by the way.
It's been fun to watch. They're a really fun team. We're not talking about gymnastics, even though they're 7 in the country and well worth any conversation about Jordan Weber and company. But we're talking here about Arkansas baseball. The Razorbacks opened the season this past weekend in Arlington. 3 games in the Shriners Children's Baseball Showdown. I think I got that right. There's so many words in there.
It's wordy for sure.
Yeah, college baseball showdown, baseball showdown. It's a wordy name. 3-1 there. Then they had that single game against Tarleton State where they went 1-0, a very close 3-1 win. Overall, John, biggest takeaways from this weekend before we get into concerns and causes for concerns from this team?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that once again, facing what I would call an elite opening weekend. Not everybody opens up against a bunch of powerhouses like TCU, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. These are all people who not only go to regional finals, they go to Omaha. You're also playing a very underrated Tarleton State team. That team is real good. They get all the players that basically don't want to go to Texas or Texas Tech or TCU or any of those great programs in Texas, and they field very good teams, as we saw on Monday, because after the Razorbacks scored 3 runs in that first inning, they didn't score again, which means that's pretty good pitching right there. I think the overall takeaways, because it's so early, it's mid-February, you're having to watch this on an app that you got to remember to cancel on Tuesday. I mean, it's a bunch of different things, but the number one takeaway I would say is that the Razorbacks have themselves a leadoff hitter. Damian Ruiz looked like Ricky Henderson all weekend long. I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, 13 consecutive times he reached base, which is, as far as I could tell, a Razorback record.
I think that streak is still ongoing right now because there were debates coming into it about Nolan Souza or Damian Ruiz. We didn't really see Ruiz lead off too much during, the last couple of weeks. It was really Nolan Souza. Yeah. And then, Ruiz just gets on base, and it's what he's been able to do, and it's what he showed Arkansas. And I love what he said afterwards to the media, and he was like, all I got to do is get on base because I got Ryder Helfrich and Camden Kojal hitting behind me. I know those guys are going to drive me in.
Yeah, he is the table setter, and that with losing Charles Davalon, with losing Vahiva Aloy, and losing a lot of power from that team that went so far into Omaha last year, there were questions: is Brumbaugh going to be the guy? Who's going to be the leadoff hitter? Is Souza going to, like you were talking about, is Nolan Souza going to be the leadoff hitter? It's Damian Ruiz, and that is a name that not a lot of Razorback baseball fans knew going into this weekend, but he was the clear takeaway from that weekend. I think the other takeaways were the pitching depth.
Mhm.
I think the Razorbacks have themselves an incredible problem to solve with Matt Hobbs. They had people pitching deep into this game that were shutting people out that I don't think they had. I mean, obviously, you knew Gabe Gackle, you knew Gibbler. Obviously, you're going to have Parker Coyle as going to be part of this Wiggins, but to have a freshman like Lee pitch as well as he did, I mean, he's a heralded freshman. Don't get me wrong, and people were expecting good things from him. But a lot of guys, Colin Fisher looked great. I think that they had a lot of guys that really, really stepped up. I think the 2026 Razorbacks are going to lean a little more depth in the bullpen, a little more depth with the arms, a lot of good left-handed pitchers that they have this year than offense. Although you cannot say anything offensively when you've got Ryder Helfrich, like you said, Camden Kojal, all these guys who are really big things expected from Reese Robinette, also Nolan Souza, like we talked about. There's some bang there, but I think the strength of this team very well may be the arms.
It might be different, and obviously every team is different, but that's one of the fun things about baseball is this team, you're not going to have a nine-hitter this year like you had JT last year hitting 10 home runs. Like that's just let's call it what it is. A spade's a spade. I don't think this batting order is as deep as it is here in 2025 or here in 2026 as it was in 2025, but still Damian
Yeah.
Ruiz, to your point, he was 6 of 10 in the first 4 games of the season. He's hitting
Yeah.
600 right now. Like that's Cahillo level good what Cahillo did the first 40, 45 games last season, where he was averaging 500, I want to say, into like SEC play, which is kind of absurd and unheard of.
They couldn't get Cahillo Aloy out the first half of the season last year. It was unreal. I mean, for the first half of the season, and this is what's just so hilarious to think about. There were people arguing, going, "Who's the better Aloy brother?" And then, of course, at the end of the year, Vahiva Aloy is the literal Golden Spikes winner. That just shows you how hot Cahillo Aloy was early in the year. And now you got Damian Ruiz, who you couldn't get him out. And even if he didn't get a hit, he walked. And then when he walked, he stole bases. He scored that winning run in that crazy game
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday, which was why. I mean, the tweet that the Razorback baseball had where they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory and then they did a 180 was absolutely true. That game was put to bed. That game was over. And they imploded at the end. You're trying to figure out. I think Coach Van Horn and Coach Hobbs are trying to figure out who the guys are going to be in what slots
Yeah.
moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be really fun as we continue on with the rest of the season, right? Because we're so early in the year, and then a couple of weeks go by, and now it's SEC play, and you're playing the likes of Mississippi State, you're playing Alabama, you're playing Auburn. So we've got some time to be able to figure out, okay, what's this team made of on the lineup side? But one pitcher we haven't even brought up yet is Tate McGuire, and we talk about
Oh,
kind of his relief outing. I believe it was Saturday night against TCU. Absolutely spectacular. And Tate has always been a guy that's been around the last couple of years. We've waited for him to take that step forward. And it feels like this could be the year where he does take that step forward.
last year when he was pitching well, you couldn't get on base. It was the consistency, and plus they had so many arms ahead of him, veteran arms. It was going to be tough for him to really crack that first couple of arms out of the bullpen. But now Will McIntyre's not there anymore. He's moved on, and you have an opportunity for someone like him to really pitch well, and he was sharp early on, and they couldn't get on against him either. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for the Razorbacks when it comes to options coming out of the bullpen. I think it's going to actually allow Coach Van Horn to have a quicker hook a little bit, knowing he has so many guys that he can go to, righty, lefty, lefty, righty in the bullpen. I think he's going to be able to kind of have a lot more to play with. Knock on wood, everyone's got to stay healthy and things
Mhm.
like that. I think that's something that's really good for the Razorbacks and Coach Hobbs and Coach Van Horn is that pitching depth.
Is it safe to say there's more depth on the mound this year than last year after one weekend of the regular season?
I think so, and I know they lost a lot of guys last year pitching wise as well. But you bring back Gackle, Parker Coyle. I'm really interested to see what happens with him. I want to see what happens this weekend with Xavier. Um, he was the best lefty on that team, especially coming out of the pen. I'm interested to see how he does. But to answer your question, I think the pitching is a little bit deeper this year. You got Wiggins at the back end. I think that they have a lot of options and a lot of different guys. It's not all flamethrowers. You have different release points. You have different arm angles. You have different great pitch. I mean, obviously Parker Coyle's curveball is one of the best pitches in college baseball.
Hmm.
I think that they are really going to lean on that pitching this year. But if the hitting led by who I'm just calling the captain, I don't even know if he's the actual captain, Evan, but I call Ryder Helfrich the captain because that's his team. I
Yeah.
think that as he goes, as we saw the first game when it was Homer, Homer, as he goes, I think that he can carry that team. He's obviously going to be managing the pitching staff behind the plate as the veteran. But I also think that surrounded by Kojal, surrounded by Aloy, Reese Robinette, I think I don't want to say that there's going to be pressure on Reese to immediately produce, but I think he needs to. I think they need some bang out of the first base for them to really be hitting on all cylinders.
And it's been trending that way. You talk about Ryder, where from freshman year, you knew eventually this was going to be Ryder Helfrich's team. The
Yeah.
importance of the catcher position, especially when it comes to Matt Hobbs and Dave Van Horn and how they run the pitching staff and Nate Thompson with the lineup, it was going to be Ryder's team. It was questioned, would it be last year or this year? Of course, you get the Golden Spikes winner, but it still felt like at the end of the year, it was Ryder Helfrich getting them going in Omaha. And now you have him first two at bats of the season, 2 home runs. This is every bit his team, and it's fun to see him and Gabe Gackle, who go back 8+ years to California, now being the leaders of this team. I know Dave didn't assign captains yet, but those two are probably the two captains. My guess with Cam Kojal as well. If I had to pick captains.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's it's a really good problem to have. You obviously have Cam, who was just money last year, going back to his home of Omaha, and I think obviously Kohio, who I don't know about you, but he has gained I don't know how many pounds of muscle from last year. He was already a big dude, but that guy he walked out of the dugout this weekend, and I was like, holy mackerel, he has gained at least 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. And it shows. They've been hitting home runs 450, 460, 479 ironic feet in one of the scrimmages, and they can really put a charge into it. But I think to your point, I think Ryder Helfrich last year at the end of the year was as clutch as a hitter as the Razorbacks had, and towards the end of the year, he took over. I think the mantle as the leader of that team to where he is the captain of that team. And as Ryder goes, they go, especially offensively.
And I can't wait to see the reaction he's going to get this weekend coming home to Fayetteville, playing at Baum Walker for the first time this season. John, what's just the level of excitement in Fayetteville when you look around the fan base about this team right now, where they are? Sure, there's cause for concerns. 46 strikeouts. We'll get to that in a second. But just coming back to
Yeah.
Baum Walker, after playing such a hard slate, I mean, Oklahoma State is always good year in and year out. TCU, it feels like Schloss has them at a place where they were back a couple of years ago when they came to Fayetteville and won the regional en route to an Omaha trip. And again, Texas Tech, who's been down the last couple of years. We talked about Tarleton State too, but it was a hard opening weekend for them. What's the excitement coming back to Baum Walker this week?
Well, Coach Van Horn clearly loves going to Globe Life Field, and I think that there's a lot of what's not to like. You're going to not just a Major League Baseball stadium, but that's a brand new stadium. Essentially, it's still got the new stadium car smell that it has. It's really a great place to play. You're going to maybe the most fertile recruiting base that you have in the Dallas Fort Worth area. They recruit Texas so well. It feels like they have 10, 11 kids every year who are from Texas. So this is looked at as them as kind of a pseudo in-state program by the coaches and kids in Texas. And I think that you are wanting to get a feel for how good your team is. Now, I know Xavier, don't sleep on Xavier. Xavier's actually a pretty good team. They're not a cupcake. They can come in here and steal one game, maybe two. Arkansas should win, but Xavier's a good team. I think by going though to Arlington the way Coach does, it feels like every year. I feel like this is going to be something that they do. They get a good gauge playing these Big 12 teams of where they are both hitting and pitching and even fielding. It feels to me, and I don't know what your takeaway is on it either. They feel like they're going to be a little more aggressive on the base paths, especially if you have someone like Ruiz, who is such a good base runner and already stole bases over the weekend.
Yeah, and Cam Kojal, we saw it in Omaha last year, the importance he stressed on getting that extra 90 feet, right? Whether it was stealing a run at home. We saw it in the Tennessee Super Regional early on to set that tone in game one. And then we saw it a couple of
Yeah.
times in Omaha, stealing an extra 90 base running. I think it's always important to have good base runners. But again, this team feels like it's such an athletic team versus the last
Mhm.
couple of years, where I do think that's going to be a lot more important. And Baum Walker, because of how big the backstop is, allows you to steal an extra 90 feet every now and then.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's interesting, the dimensions of Baum Walker Stadium, both not just the foul territory, but like you said, behind the home plate. There's a lot of room back there. It can get interesting if a ball goes caroming back there. You can go from first to third pretty quick. And I noticed that a lot of the guys on the Razorbacks, I wouldn't exactly call it Whitey Herzog, Whitey ball, or like the Cardinals fans did in the 80s, but there's more speed. There is more speed on this team, I think. And I do believe that running more, being more aggressive on the base paths are something we are going to see this year in 2026.
Yeah, let's talk now about the cause for concern when it comes to the hitting side. We've alluded to it. 46 strikeouts this weekend. DVH said after the weekend, hey, if some guys don't change their approach, they're going to come sit with me on the bench, right? Are you
Yeah.
nervous that we're at 46 strikeouts so far in a single weekend? Or is it more, hey, you're facing really good pitching. It's weekend one. Let's see what happens when these guys come back to Baum Walker this weekend and face maybe not the same level of pitching that was this past weekend, but as they kind of get that tune up for a Mississippi State team to open SEC play in about a month from today.
I think it's a combination of the two. I think you have to look at it as this is the first weekend. You're playing in an area that is not Baum Walker Stadium. Baum Walker Stadium is great, but did they have 23,000 people there for one of the games? That was crazy. That is
Yeah.
a major league atmosphere. And here we have a shortstop, a freshman, who is trying to fill the very large golden spikes that were there last year. And he's going to be a heck of a player, Carson Brumbaugh. But it was big this weekend. I mean, you go right into, a schedule where I know that when you come to Arkansas, you are playing the elite. You are playing LSU and Florida and Mississippi State and really Texas and great teams. Texas Tech, TCU, and Oklahoma State are no further away from those teams. Those are all legit programs, and you're playing in Dallas, and you've got all the hoopla going on with that. I think it might have got a little big for some of the kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's a really big atmosphere. They're going to come home this weekend. They're going to have some time to work on some things. Coach Thompson's going to look at some film. They're going to see maybe a different approach. I noticed that Coach Van Horn, one of the things that was brought up was the two-strike approach that he was talking about. And he's right. But let's be honest, the Razorbacks have always struck out a lot. They have always gotten a lot of Ks. I mean, Hagen Smith would pitch, he would get 18 strikeouts, and then the other guy would get about 15 strikeouts. It was just a lot of strikeouts in these games. And so they have always gotten more strikeouts than a lot of teams, but the approach has worked and it's gotten them as far as they have. I don't think you want 46 strikeouts, though. Not ideal. But we'll see how it goes with Xavier this weekend. And if they tweak the lineup based on what they did in Dallas.
And I know that it's that kind of Nate Thompson hitting approach of, launch angle and hitting big flies or striking out, because at the end of the day, that's just the way he coaches. And Arkansas fans online surely have their takes on it. We know some of them, we read them, we can hear what
Yeah,
people
right.
say. And
I
they're not
believe they do have their takes.
exactly. So it'll be fun to see what happens. And you talk about being the moment being a little too big for a guy. The guy I've got my eye on this weekend, Saturday starter Hunter Dietz. I want to see how he does in an environment he's comfortable. One start under his belt. Look, he had a pitch in a top 10 ranked matchup, and I think he's only really pitched against Tennessee and LSU in his career. He hasn't had too many softball lineups that he's gone against. And again, Xavier is a very good Big East school. I think they finished top 5 last year. Obviously, Creighton came here in the Fayetteville Regional. You had UConn that was right out first team out of the tournament. So not a knock to Xavier, but I'd like to see Hunter Dietz against non-SEC level talent so that he can build up to that moment.
I mean, the thing about Hunter Dietz, which everybody knows, it's never been an issue about the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Electric. He is a prospect. This is a guy who, if he stays healthy, could see himself literally in the big leagues inside of 2.5, 3 years. He has high 90s, sharp breaking stuff, hides the ball well, great makeup. It's been health. He's not been able to get on the hill. He's gotten healthy. Then he had a hiccup last year where he wasn't able to pitch. And it's just been one of those things. And you're right. If he can get things right, stay healthy, feel good, start making every week where he's able to get out there, there's not many players and there's not many teams that are going to have 100 Dietz up there. And so if he's able to push this weekend to do what he does, you're probably going to see, if he's pitching well, a lot of strikeouts. Just let the guys behind you field, and good things are going to happen. But with Hunter Dietz, it's never been a question of the stuff. He's got electric stuff.
And that's coming off a Gabe Gackel Friday start and a Colin Fisher Sunday start, where Fisher's looked absolutely phenomenal this entire season so far. I mean, it's only one game, but even going back to what DVH told us a couple of weeks ago, and you're just seeing it right now. Like, I love that it's this crop of juniors that we knew had so much talent a couple of years ago. Now they're here and now they're performing at their highest ability. I love that it's that junior crop of players right now who has experience. And then you've back-ended and filled some other guys with experience, but it's this core that's doing this right now.
Yeah, well, and another guy that I think is worth mentioning is Steele Eves. I think that he's a guy that you're going to be able to depend on. Love his makeup coming out of the bullpen. His body language and just the way he carries himself. He's a lot of fun to watch pitch. I really am looking forward to seeing Gabe. I think the way that Coach Van Horn and the way that Coach Hobbs have talked about Gabe, they just feel like he's really comfortable. He obviously went from the bullpen to the starting rotation. That's a massive, massive move. Now he's comfortable being the guy. He's our Friday ace. Let's see what he can do now that we are, sort of back home at Baum-Walker Stadium for the next few weeks. See what he can do, because I think when he has his stuff and when he's locating and he has the command, especially of that breaking ball, because it's fastball, when he's got his fastball going, he and Gage Wood were the best fastballs, I thought, in the SEC. I thought they were able to make their fastballs rise. They were able to do really good things with their fastballs on the corners. They were unhittable towards the end of the year. I think Gabe can be that guy and can be the best pitcher in the SEC.
John, two more, then we'll let you go. We got to go into a break. The first one, who you got hitting the first home run at Baum-Walker this season?
Nah, that's a great question. Normally it would have been immediate. I would have just immediately said Ryder Helfrich.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Damian Ruiz, boy, if he's leading off, you can't discount him. But all in all, I'll go Ryder Helfrich going deep first at Baum-Walker.
That's the easy choice. I'm going to go with off the beaten path. Give me Reese Robinette. I think he pulls the ball to that scoreboard. I like him to do it. Last thing we got for you. What are you most looking forward to this weekend being back at Baum-Walker?
Well, I'll tell you this, and we were talking a little bit before we started this, that I am going to be at Baum-Walker Stadium Saturday at 1 and then race over to Bud Walton Arena at 3 for Arkansas Mizzou on the court. So that's going to be interesting to see how much baseball I do. But what I'm really interested to see this weekend at Baum-Walker Stadium is the fans. I'm really excited to see everybody. Section 101 looking at you guys, and to see how the new video board is. For people that don't know, they have a new video board over on the Fairpole patio. Shout out Phil Elson, Fairpole patio on the left field side. New video board, that'll be fun. They always do such a great job around the stadium and with the fan engagement. So it'll be fun to see that as well.
Well, John, can't thank you enough for the time. That's going to do it right now for the rubber match. We'll be right back on the other side of the break. Stick around. All right, a big thank you to John for joining the show. Cannot wait to keep coming at you with all these different episodes. We'll have special guests, like I've mentioned, every single week. Hey, I do want to talk around the SEC really quickly. Some really interesting results. Obviously, Cincinnati last night taking down number 9 Auburn. That game was on the Plains. A big showing for the Bearcats Auburn struggled a little bit opening weekend. I'm curious to see where they kind of rebound during the week next week. How about Arkansas State, a team right here in the natural state, going down to Oxford, Mississippi? They almost won, probably should have won that game, lost 7-6. So those are some really interesting headlines from this past week in SEC baseball. Obviously, LSU rolled. Tennessee, the Josh Elander era, they started off really strong. Some other things around SEC baseball that we'll keep watching. Alabama. Florida lost a game this past weekend, so who knows what's going on there, but Sully will get those guys rolling eventually. Texas A&M, I think they're going to have a bounce-back year. I really like them as a candidate in the SEC to be better here in 2026 than they were in 2025. We all know what happened last year. Preseason number 1, didn't even make the NCAA tournament. Jim Schlossnagle leaves, yada, yada, yada. We don't have that much time. But again, a big thanks to John Williams for joining the show. And hey, how about Arkansas softball? Let's give them some love really quickly. Tiana Bell setting the tone down at the States Up Invitational, where Arkansas had an undefeated weekend. Obviously, a game got canceled because of the weather, but they defeated number 18 Clemson, really mollywopped them. I think they've run rolled, and correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, every single opponent they've played that they've beat so far this season. Not a single win. No, I take that back. They beat Virginia. They beat one game 4-2. So I take that back. I don't have that off the top of my head. But pretty much out of 8 wins, I think 6 to 7 of them are mercy roll, which is unbelievable. Can't wait to see them this weekend against SEMO and Northwestern. But that is going to do it for the rubber match this week. As always, thank you all for tuning in. And we'll be right back here next week with a brand new episode of the Rubber Match. Enjoy.